So last week we discussed a little bit about what the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser was, and today I figured we could take a closer look at the ship that it takes place on. Let's talk about the design and the history of the Halcyon. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. Now, I'd like to add before we start that this video will also not contain any spoilers for the story behind the Galactic Starcruiser. I will simply be talking about the backstory of the ship featured in that production. So, the Halcyon, which is right here behind me, is an MPO 1400 Purrgil-class star cruiser built by Corellian Engineering. It was originally built for its long-term intended purpose, which is pleasure cruises and civilian transport. Now, it's a lot nicer than some of the other refugee transports we see, for example, during the events of Attack of the Clones. It's much more like a luxury cruise ship than a ocean liner. Now, at 300 meters, the Purrgil class isn't necessarily massive. It can't shine a light on most warships in galactic history, but it is still large enough to carry a significant number of civilians, about 100 rooms on board. And it's pushed forward through space by a cluster of 13 sublight engines, which are mounted in a cluster in the back, much like other Corellian Engineering vessels like the CR-90 Corvette. And to a lot of people's surprise, the Halcyon and the rest of the Purrgil-class star cruisers aren't actually unarmed. Each vessel contains 12 turbolasers, mostly mounted near the bow of the vessel, intended for self-defense against pirates and other hostile forces. These, by the way, remain affixed for basically the entire history of the ship, which is kind of interesting because it's got a very colorful history. So let's just jump right in with the story of the Halcyon. So the Halcyon was commissioned and built in 241 BBY during the days of the High Republic. It was built for the Chandrila Charter Company, which would eventually transition into being the Chandrila Star Lines, which is the company that persists during the events of the Galactic Starcruiser. Originally being built during the days of the High Republic, it actually served as a site of a minor battle between the Nil and the Jedi, which were in conflict with one another at the time. And sometime around 230 BBY, it helped with the Dalnan evacuation. During that evacuation, it played a crucial role in helping tow the Starlight beacon through hyperspace. Following the events of the High Republic, it entered a 200-year period of relative prosperity, serving its intended role as a passenger liner, a luxury passenger liner at that. During that time, many notable characters would pass through its halls, including famous bounty hunters like Aurra Sing. However, all of that came to an end when, shortly before the outbreak of the Clone Wars, the vessel was either commandeered or purchased, based on who you ask, by the Hutt cartel. The Hutts converted it into a large pleasure vessel for members of the Hutt Council, and it became an integral part of Hutt diplomacy. There, it saw many dramatic deals in between the Hutts and other factions, including a showdown between Anakin and Asajj Ventress, which occurred on board the Halcyon while Anakin was in pursuit of a senator that was attempting to defect to the Confederacy. Following the end of the war, the vessel was handed back to the Chandrilan Star Line, but it didn't stay there for long, as it was quickly commandeered by the Empire, which converted it into a large retreat for Imperial officers. During that time, they made some significant structural modifications to the vessel and converted it to serve more Imperial roles. But with the fall of the Empire, after the Battle of Jakku, the vessel was once again returned to the Chandrilan Star Line, which returned it to its original purpose, a civilian passenger liner, a role that it would fill for the remainder of its career up to the events of the Galactic Starcruiser, which take place between the events of Episode 8 and Episode 9. Ultimately, the Halcyon and the rest of the Purrgil class are rather beautiful vessels. They're an interesting combination of Corellian design styles, like what we see in the CR-90 Corvette, and the wedge-shaped hulls of an Imperial-class Star Destroyer, which actually look pretty good when sort of meshed together. On top of that, the history, well, it does seem to be a little bit fan-servicey, wrapping in noteworthy characters, including Aurra Sing, Anakin Skywalker, Asajj Ventress, Lando Calrissian and Hondo were both on board during the Imperial era, and so on and so forth, plus the characters that you interact with during the events of the Galactic Starcruiser. It's part of a much larger experience that's so much more than just a hotel, and if you'd like to learn about my first thoughts having got off the Starcruiser about a week ago, I'll leave a link up here to my video on why the Galactic Starcruiser is so much more than just a hotel. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think this is too storied of a history for any single ship. After all, it played a role in the Clone Wars and the Imperial era, and like I said, was home to vast swaths of Star Wars characters. It also, by the way, served as the honeymoon location for Han and Leia following their marriage. So, do you think this ship is really too many places, or do you think it makes sense for what's supposedly one of the most luxurious ships in the galaxy? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.